Hey everybody, Lawrence here with Dirty Basic Terrain, coming at you with another one. Now, what do Navajo Cliff Dwellings, Earthman Brick, and a can of Mexican street corn flavored Pringles have in common? If you're asking yourself, I don't know, I can tell you. They were all part of an inspiration for my latest build. Basically, three-door dwelling or pick-a-door type of deal in the desert. I don't know. My brain just kind of went a little weird to the weird places with this one, but they were all part of the inspiration for that build. Before we get to the actual build, I want to give a big thank you to my patrons. With your guys' help every month, it's greatly appreciated, and I just can't thank you enough. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, well, the Pringles can is approximately 9 inches long. Well, actually, it is 9 inches long, so I want to measure out 3-inch segments. Just so I can get semi-close to, equal length segments. I said, just marking it out to where I need the cut. Now that I got the 3-inch segments cut or marked out, grab my razor saw here and just hack away and cut the 3-inch long sections out. Pretty simple. It doesn't have to be exact, and it doesn't even have to look pretty because all this is going to get covered up anyway. But as long as I get close to 3 inches each, I'm good. I have these 5x5 1/4-inch thick tiles that I made. I have a pile of them sitting ready to go, and I just want to glue a bunch together for a base. So a couple beads of hot glue, stick them together and make sure they're kind of flat. That's important. But I'll glue a bunch of these together for a proper base. Now that I've got all these pieces glued together, I want to place the Pringle can sections, get an idea of where eventually they're going to wind up. Don't want to have a straight line, so kind of offset them a little bit. Like I said, this is just to get an idea of placement, and then I'll trace around. And I trace around just so for the next step I won't screw anything up, Now that I've got that done, I want to actually cut around the edges of the base and just get the basic idea, or get the basic base done. So I'm just marked it, and now I'm trimming it. Not rocket surgery or anything like that. Just cut away wherever I marked, and boom, I have a base. Okay, now I want to get to making doors. Then I have this template I made a long time ago, and I kept it, so I'm going to use it. I'm just tracing out the pattern on a little piece of card that I got out of a cat food box, and boom, I have the patterns for my door. It's just a matter of trimming away the excess card, and I have the back of my door. So no need to overcomplicate things and try and figure it out every single time. Make a template and then reuse it. Now that I got the backs of the door made, I'm just grabbing some tacky glue and then painting it on. And I have some thin XPS that I'm going to attach to this, as you can see, kind of underneath my hands there. Just attach, press, and boom, done. See, I have a bunch of this really thin stuff for use in things like this that I already have pre-cut and ready to go. Now that the glue is kind of dry, I'm going to start trimming away all the excess XPS, and then I'll be able to move on to the next step. Hopefully, soon, kind of, in a way. Now, the glue is basically dry, so I'm going to take this plastic nylon grout brush and just grind it into that foam to get like a wood texture. I prefer this method over doing individual planks just because it's so much easier. And I can take my expensive carving tool there, the number 2 pencil, and then just carve in the individual planks out of one piece. You basically get the same effect with less effort, honestly. So that's why I do it this way. And boom, I have 4 planks for my door. Easy peasy. Now I have to make some banding for the door, and I'm using some more of that thin XPS that I have set and ready to go. And just cut off some small banding strips. Hold it to the door just to make sure I cut it long enough. You don't want to cut it too short. Each band has to cover all 4 of the planks for the door, because if it doesn't, it's like, what's holding that last plank up, you know? And I'm going to cut a little point here to the door under the banding, just for aesthetic reasons. And it looks cool. Make sure I actually have the right length. Okay. And I'm going to get the first part of the door handle on here, or cut just a small piece and a little square. Boom. I had the pieces cut for the doors. Now, it's just a matter of grabbing some more of that tacky glue, pinning onto the back of the bands and the back of the door handle, and just attaching and hopefully letting it dry long enough. Hopefully. My patience holds out. It usually doesn't, but I try. Now it's time to start attaching the doors to the Pringle sections, and they're flat, so I gotta bend them a little bit. Another reason to use thin XPS so it won't break. Get it to the basic shape I need, slap on some hot glue. I want to use hot glue because, you know, that like shiny finish to the Pringles can PVA may not, you know, properly hold, and hot glue will. And as you can see, some of the banding popped up, so it's just a little quick dab of hot glue and boom, on. It's stuck. I might have to take some excess away here, but, you know, problem fixed. Now I gotta start. I have a boatload of bricks pre-cut up and ready to go, but being that I gotta attach them to a curved surface, these bricks are a little too thick for that, so I am just going to cut a bunch of them in half, and that'll give them the flexibility to adhere to the curve of the Pringles can. And it gives me twice as many bricks, though. This is a pain in the butt doing this. Now that I got enough bricks cut up, I'm going to actually get the line of bricks around the door first, which are the full-size bricks, because they don't have to worry about the curve as much, and just kind of do a little hat doorway. Or a frame, yes, thank you, a door frame around the door itself. And yeah, it requires a little cutting and angling around the top curve, but that's not that hard. Just kind of line it up, make it cut. If you screw it up, cut a little more or cut a new one. Not that bad. Do this until I have the whole doorway done, and boom. Time to move on to the next step. And this is why I cut all those bricks in half, because of that. Just so I can easily bend them to the curve. And I'm just going to start putting them on, a little spot of hot glue. And again, I wasn't entirely sure if PVA would have worked here, though I normally use hot glue anyway for this. But I wanted to ensure that the bricks would stick. So I went with hot glue. Now here I've got to work my way over that little top curve, and I might have to trim the bricks a little bit extra. And as you can see, I have been trimming the bricks just to fit around the curve of the top of the door. It's slightly annoying, but to get the look I wanted, that's what I did. So just continually test fitting and then trimming and test fit, trim, until you can get to where it can be stuck on. And now to actually attach these suckers. You know what? I'm just going to go with my tried and true hot glue, because it's been working for me, and I'm not going to, it's a method that's not broken, so I'm not going to fix it. I'll just hot glue all 3 of these in place, and as you can see, I did not do the backs because they're going to be covered up anyway, so I wasn't going to go through the effort of bricking everything if it's not going to be seen. And of course now, as what I've been doing with the layered effect that I'm trying to figure out, I'm just grabbing all different scraps and then slapping them in place. I'm really not wholly worried about perfection at this point. I just need to make layers upon layers upon layers. And you know what? I have found out this is a great way to get rid of scraps and offcuts. As you can see, I did a lot of layers, and of course, you know, little tiny offcuts I just kind of chucked inside of the Pringles cans. But I want to get this first layer on. I have these little 1/4-inch pieces I cut up for this. And just mark it, and then hot glue in the place where I marked, and then slap it down, and then start trimming away excess for this first layer of the quote-unquote roof. And again, do the same thing for the back. Just start trimming away. You can kind of line them up to match. Like I said, this is just one of many layers. This is actually, well, it can be a little monotonous doing this because of all the layers. It's a great way to get rid of scrap. But again, just for a second layer of the roof, just same process, mark it off, glue, and then trim away. Of course, I want to get rid of all those hard edges, and I'm just going to use a lighter real quick and then lightly brush over and melt the foam to a degree. Not set it on fire, keep it there long enough to cause any smoke, just enough to heat it up and melt the hard edges. Though make sure you're in a ventilated area or have a fan going to blow any potential fumes. Just be really careful with this method. While it works great and it gives a hard shell to the foam, it can be nauseous. And of course, my homemade texture paste, I'm going to slap it all over this entire thing, except for the bricks. But, again, it's just painting it on until I get the coverage I like and I'm happy with. I didn't want to go too thick or too thin, you know. With a little practice, you'll get it, get to a point where you like it and it's just right. But again, I'm just going covering for different areas, and I'm going to do this in stages, and I'm using some water dipped in a brush and brush it over to smooth it over a little bit and give it less of a rougher look to it. And now I'm using my stiff bristle brush, dip it in water, and just trace around and give like layered lines to it. Not too hard. I mean, you don't have to go like full bore, dig into it, but this is just an old beater brush with very stiff bristles, which I'll dip in water and then run along the edges for the layered effect. Of course, now I want to primer this baby up. I'm just using the airbrush. Now, you might want to use some Mod Podge, but the Mod Podge is a little thick, and I really didn't want to clog up any of the details on the layering effects that I did. So I definitely went with just primer paint. Besides, all the foam is protected anyway, except for the bricks, but I'm not worried about that. But again, quick blast with the airbrush. You can brush it on. This is just black bombing. Now, of course, I want to put on the base coat, Americana True Ochre. I've done desert stuff before, and this was my go-to for the base coat. I did water it down a bit, and unfortunately, I kind of watered it down a little too much. But I was like, I'm going to do this anyway. And eventually, I did go back and give it a second coat. Clown puke time! Not my normal colors for clown puke, but I went with, I do it with some checking out pictures and stuff. I saw oranges, browns, and whites, mixed in with some of the sandstone that I saw. So I was like, okay, let's go with that. Because I wanted, as always, I want a little variation. Even though it's not highly visible, it just makes, to me, it just pops. I know I keep saying that, but it's true. And of course I'll pick out a few extra bricks here and there, but I'll use those different colors you saw and just do the whole clown puke thing. I know people call it leopard spotting, but I call it clown puke because that's what it winds up looking like clown puked on it. As you can see there, all the different colors. And of course I'm going to do an overbrush using some Golden Sunset from Apple Barrel. And this is going for like 75 to 85% coverage. And you can already tell that all the clown puke is getting dulled down or muted quite a bit. We don't want the different colors to be the star. We just want them to be a supporting cast. Of course, now I'm going to use a color from Deco Art Americana called Desert Sand. Go figure, using desert sand in a desert piece. But I'm just giving it a real quick heavy dry, not a heavy dry brush, but a medium, not light dry brush all over, just to make all the different details pop and whatnot. All over the sand areas, and I'm doing the bricks with this as well. Of course, now I'm going to do the doors. They need some love too, and just give them a base coat of a burnt umber or dark brown or whatever color you decide to paint your doors. But this is my terrain, so I'm painting how I want to. I said 100% coverage on all the wood areas. I'm not really worried if I hit the banding or not, but now I'm doing an overbrush with a mid-tone nutmeg brown, and just again, same as any overbrush that I do, it's like 75-85% coverage, leaving the deepest recesses alone and trying to make the texturing pop a little bit with this. Now that that's done, I'm going to my light mocha here and just do a dry brush over top of the mid-tone brown and make all the wood grain and texture really pop. And of course I'm going to use some antique copper here, my go-to color for banding. It looks bronzy enough, and paint all the banding and the door handle backs. Of course, now I want to use some homemade pigment powder and just get around the corners and different spots where I think maybe some darker, dusty dirt collected, and also to enhance the shadows and just make the piece pop a little bit more. You use the soft pastel chalk scraped into a powder. It's a cheap pigment powder, and you don't feel bad about using it, or you use it to the point where it's needed, and you won't ever hold back trying to use this stuff. Again, just cracks and crevices, enhancing shadows. Now I'm using a pin vise, and I want to actually start drilling holes into where I want to put these like seed pod things that were sent to me by a patron. And like, these are cool. I was like, I've been holding on to these for a while, looking for the perfect thing, and I wanted plants, so these seed pod things just worked out perfect. They look kind of like dried and desiccated and deserty, so I was like, yep, I'm using those. And it covers up some mistakes. Now, the thing with these seed pods is I accidentally kind of like stripped all the seeds off of one, or the little pod things off of one of the branches. So I was like, I gotta seal these in and glue them so they don't fall off. So I'm just using some matte Mod Podge and just slopping it all over to make sure they stay in place. Now I'm using the pin vise just to drill some holes for the door handle bases, because I'm going to add some door handles. It's now that the holes are in, I drip. The door handles I made up like 2 years ago, a whole bunch of them all at one shot, so I can use them easily. Just dip them in some PVA, push them through the holes, and boom, I got my door handle. I'm going to be using some grass tufts from AK Interactive, and my go-to favorite place, Huge Miniatures. And these are like the dried brown desert color grass. So, hey, perfect. And just place them anywhere I think. I just want a little bit of variation and differences, or anywhere that I think grass might grow. I'll be honest, I wasn't entirely sure about this project again at the beginning, but it wound up being a trust process because I just wanted to use a Pringles can, and this is what I wound up with. And once again, I'm relatively happy with how it worked out. I'm really enjoying this layer technique that I'm trying to figure out. And
hey everybody, if you watch this far, it means you're watching it. And as always, I can't thank you enough. I greatly appreciate it. If you like the video, hit the thumbs up. If you want to see more, click subscribe. If you want to get a hold of me directly, come to the Discord channel, link down in the description. Also, there's a link down in the description to Earthman Brick's channel, because also I want to give him a big thank you because if any of you have noticed the thumbnails that have been up for my videos, he's been making them for me, and I greatly appreciate that. Once again, guys, I really am happy with how this turned out. I'm reducing my scrap and cut-off pile, and I'm throwing this out, so it's kind of environmentally friendly. But again, I was super happy with how this turned out. Again, it's a piece I wouldn't have done if I didn't want to work with a Pringles can. Really. Again, guys, as always, remember, when you're building your winter terrain, your desert terrain, your swamp terrain, it doesn't matter. Whenever you're building your terrain, the only person you got to worry about is you, because it's your terrain.